at Curiosity, the Why Didn't You Test That podcast experiences an insight on the many sides of better software delivery.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Why Didn't You Test That podcast. Joining me again, another Mr. James Walker. Hi, James. How you doing?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be back.
Cool. And joining us today, our very special guest is Mr. Daniel Nilsson. So I've got a bit of a bio for Daniel before we bring him on stage. So Daniel is a senior test consultant and managing director and co-founder of Test Scouts, a consultant company in the industrial city of Gothenburg, Sweden, focused on coaching and mentoring passionate testers. His test consultancy advocates a continuous learning model in response to the ever-increasing developments in the testing space. Sharing his ideas, you're likely to spot Daniel at conferences like QA Test in Bilbao. Big welcome to Daniel. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, kind of your kind of a background in test and a bit about Test Scouts?
Yeah, sure. I've been working with test for the last 20 years or so. I came into it direct from school. Started at a big Swedish company called Volvo. And
we might come back to that.
Yeah, maybe. And I worked within automotive more or less my whole career.
Awesome.
And started Test Scouts soon 10 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, as a niche consultant company within testing. We saw a big need for that here in the area, local area. It's been growing and it's been a really nice journey so far.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming on and introducing yourself. So in the kind of the preamble to this conversation, we've obviously had a conversation with Daniel and kind of got a couple of subjects. One of them about kind of the ecosystem that is Gothenburg testing. So we'll come on to that in a bit. But to start with, I think quite recently you've done some kind of conference speaking around a specific subject in itself, James's favorite subject, which is AI. Just to kind of get the conversation going a little bit. Do you want to tell us a bit about the kind of the subject of the talk that you've been giving?
Yeah, for sure. I've done a recent talk at the Romanian Test Conference, but also at other conferences the last couple of years. And it's not specifically on AI, but on AI and test. So it's a combination. And I've seen that a lot of the discussions in different social medias and it kind of tends to go towards either that AI is crap, if we listen to the, let's say, old thought leaders within test, and if we listen to the new ones, then let's say, prompt engineering will solve everything. And I've tried to look from a different angle and see either how can we as testers improve the quality if we see that it's crap, how can we bring our toolboxes or our mindset and actually improve it. So that's one angle, and the other angle is how can we create tools more further beyond prompt engineering to help us in our daily work. So that has been my angle.
Awesome. So you mentioned the kind of the toolbox of the testers and how we can kind of bring that to bear in AI. Do you want to just elaborate on kind of what kind of the toolbox tools can kind of really help to enable kind of the use of AI?
Yeah, and when I say tools, I don't mean like a test automation tool or a hammer. Yeah, exactly. So it's more connected to kind of our abilities as tester or our knowledge and so on. And I mean, questioning is one of our biggest strengths, I think, or one of our biggest tools. And I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a software or if it's a requirement or if it's a data set or if it's an idea. We can still challenge that with questions. And let's say take a data set. I've been working quite a lot with autonomous vehicles, and of course you need to collect a huge amount of data for that to be able first, of course, to train it, but then also to test and validate it. And if you don't collect the correct data, it takes time, and that will be very expensive if you don't do it right from the beginning, and therefore you need to be there and challenge
absolutely.
the data set from the beginning, not only to make it representative, but also that you get these corner cases and kind of remove bias and everything.
Do you find that, AI aside, almost kind of the concentration, the need, almost the appreciation of getting those data sets right has always been a problem, especially for testers, right? Part of my background is around performance testing, right? And if you could get an actual capacity analysis of how a system is supposed to work, I'll go and work there, right? Because you could never get people interested in actually doing that analysis. Is AI made people more aware of the need for proper scrutiny around data, or is it kind of more of the same?
In general, I think it's actually the same, unfortunately. But I hope that over time that it will switch, especially since we will we will see let's say the problems in a different way with AI, and we will experience them in a different way. And therefore over time I think it will come, but from the beginning, and now kind of when it starts, focuses on getting things out rather than getting the actual quality. So therefore it's kind of the same view, I would say.
Yeah,
it's interesting, Daniel, because that's almost an evolution of the role of the tester, right? You're moving away from testing being about this thing. At the end, you're testing, the application meets the requirements, or you're doing your regression to make sure the wheels are still on. And now you're expanding that, and you're saying, actually, we need to test other areas, right? We need to test the data. We need to test, and that's going all the way to the beginning of the life cycle, right? That's nowhere near the end. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, I see it. I mean, we've been talking for a lot of years about shifting left, being there early, and I think this is really an opportunity where we can show that we can do different really, really, really early before we start actually develop things. When we collect the data, or when we address what data do we need for this kind of application.
I think it's interesting, without trying to put words in James's mouth. We get engaged with a lot of use cases where obviously we've got a modeling tool, right, where we're asked to accelerate the import of information to create very detailed models, and quite a lot of the time that information just doesn't exist in the artifacts that we're looking to import, right? And to a certain extent, people are looking for magic, right? They almost want, like you said, right, you want the outcome without actually putting any effort into what does it mean to get the outcome. James, do you want to kind of I put loads of words in your mouth there. Do you want to put a cover on what I just said?
Thanks. I actually just listening to you both talk. So I went to a conference in Thailand last week, and it was on the future of I think it was like the future of the world. It was very broad, but the underlying theme was technology, right? So everyone was talking about AI, machine learning, etc. Every single talk I went to mentioned garbage in, garbage out, which is, it's such like a well-recognized concept in the machine learning AI space. But as soon as you come to software delivery, you come to development, it's almost like everything's thrown out the window, right? You look at what we're inputting into software delivery, you look at a lot of the requirements we have. They're very bad. A lot of them are empty. They're ambiguous. They're not complete. So all of a sudden, we're throwing garbage into our software delivery lifecycle. We're getting garbage out the back end. And then to Rich's point, we often get extensions of that. You almost end up in this state where companies know they've produced garbage, I guess. So they've got, lots of manual test cases in some kind of test case management tool, or, in Excel as well, right? That's quite a popular one. And then they're almost coming to us and they're asking, can you clean up this garbage for us? And, often the answer is no, right? Because there's no silver bullet kind of magic button. But I think, that companies kind of fall into two categories. Either they don't really recognize they have garbage, and that's a, significant problem, or they know they have garbage, but they're not willing to put the work in to clean it up, right?
But I think it's the same analogy when we talk about CI/CD. There's a lot of companies that spend enormous amount of energy and effort into building this huge machine that is the pipelines.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't matter that you have that nice machine if what you put in is, as you say, garbage, and then you get garbage out.
Yeah.
So you need to balance this. You need to work with the quality of the input and balance that with this nice machine. And I see it's the same with AI as I see it here. But here I think this is where we kind of from the testing perspective needs to address and show the difference, both the difference that we can make, but also the difference that we see in quality if we are there early and do the changes.
What do you guys think is the solution to that? Because to me, I've always had this mantra that if we want to do anything intelligent in software delivery, to your point, Daniel, we have to start with this kind of, it's almost like a data-oriented mantra, I guess, at the beginning, where, you know, we're really focused on building in traceability, we're building in structured data, we're trying to have our systems talk to each other. So if we make a change, we know the impact of it. Do you think that's because the tooling doesn't exist, the process doesn't exist? Do you think it's a people issue that we need to have more education? Like, what's the fundamental issue, do you think?
It's a good question. I don't think that the tooling is a problem. That is something we could create if we see the problems. So that shouldn't be a problem. So I guess it comes down to the people. Yeah. And if that is people itself or it's people combined with education and understanding. But I think also it's connected to the speed. I mean, everything we want to see something in front of us as early as possible.
True. Yeah.
I mean, instead of maybe spending some extra minutes to actually discuss and see, okay, are we on the right track? Do we have the right ideas, the right things prepared? And then we can start doing things. But instead of, okay, let's put those lines of code down and start typing.
Yeah, it's interesting, is it's the illusion of moving when perhaps you're not even moving, right?
You're doing a lot, but
it's a generational thing, right? In terms of, you know, that go back, I was going to say 5 years, but more than that, like 10 years, automation was that. Now it's kind of AI that is that, right? In terms of almost people don't want to do the fundamental basics. You know, we talk a lot of around people don't ask basic questions, right? Just get on and do something. And actually, if you stopped for a little bit, asked a basic question, it's not a hard question, it's not a hard answer, but that conversation doesn't happen. Just people want to move.
I've had a lot of discussions in different teams where I've said that don't do anything, start thinking about it, and then they come back and think, Daniel, do you think that I'm doing a bad job? And for me, it's more, no, but you're doing a great job. Whatever you do is great. But if you do the wrong thing, it doesn't help that you're good at what you're doing. It will still be useless.
Wasted effort, isn't it?
Yeah, wasted effort in the end. It's not about, I mean, you're probably the best at what you're doing, but it doesn't help if you don't make sure that what you're doing is what's expected.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. So in terms of, I guess there's the conversation about testing of AI, and there's also kind of how we use AI as testers. Are you seeing any kind of large useful developments, I should say, within testing and the use of AI within that space? Obviously, apart from what we're doing around Modeler.
Of course. Now, I've seen some interesting things, of course, when it comes towards, let's say, autonomous testing and so on. But I think that we're trying to kind of address take a little bit too big step instead of taking smaller steps, doing smaller pieces instead of going straight for the, let's say, end goal or whatever you call it.
Yeah. I think the marketing hype is, you know, to the spectrum of people who say AI is crap. I think almost there has been almost this grand AI will revolutionize and actually take a step back, like you said there, right? Incremental gains in terms of, can it provide me some small benefit today? Actually, as we get more used to what the problem statement is, what AI can actually do for us more usefully, that kind of what's the exoskeleton capability of AI becomes more and more useful to our everyday lives, right?
Yeah. But I think similar to with test automation, to not focus on kind of automating everything and that solves everything. Having the philosophy to look at what slows you down.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And address those things. And if you see that, okay, this can be done with a traditional script, or here we could, there's a lot of data here, so an AI solution will help us. And if it's then a small portion, I mean, you could easily do it yourself within your team or whatever.
I think the other challenge is it's if you look at applying AI right now, it's still very technical. Like you have to really know about, to a certain extent, some kind of prompt engineering. You're still stuck inside ChatGPT to a certain extent as well, right? I went to a talk last week, and the guy was talking about like the stack of AI, and he was going through and he was saying, at the very bottom you've got like your hardware stack, which is like Intel, Nvidia, etc. The chips where you're running your AI. You go up a level. Then you've got the vendors which are providing LLMs. So that could be Lambda, it could be OpenAI, it could be the Google one, right? Gemini, etc. You go up a level from that, you've got all your SaaS-based vendors. So you've got GCP, you've got AWS, and then it goes up. And he's like, every single stack that I've just mentioned is probably going to be commoditized, right? There's going to be very little innovation in this space. Like if you want to do a better LLM, you're probably just going to, throw more compute at the problem. You're not going to see a massive, significant jump from where we are now. The biggest piece of innovation is going to come in the application layer, which is where we're kind of democratizing the use of AI, and we're turning it into things that people can use in their day-to-day lives so they can get those improvements you're talking about, Daniel. And I think the problem at the moment is everyone has to learn the prompts, learn how to get value out of it. And that barrier to entry is quite high, right? I don't think it's low enough to see general benefit for most people in most organizations, right?
No, I agree. What we've done is that we have tried to look at different things that we see ourselves or together with our clients, where we see that, okay, here are small steps that we could take. It's at the same time it's a way to learn how to do things rather than going for the full scale.
I think to your point, right, it's in terms of a lot of solutions are looking for a problem, I should say. And at the moment in testing, that problem seems to be test execution, right? But like you said, right, it's about flow, right? And therefore understanding the full system development lifecycle, what are the blockers today, and what's the best solution to actually unblock or actually go a bit faster, right? Is it automation? Is it AI? Is it just not doing something that I shouldn't be doing? Right, and I think almost there's a mind shift change that needs to be done around actually just try to be solution agnostic at the very start, understand the problem and why the problem exists, and then what's the best solution for that.
Yeah, I think there are deeper things as well. Like I think with AI, obviously there's still a lot of trust issues, right, around hallucinations and everything. And I think irrespective, even if it was possible to go and automate every single scenario using AI, just go and send them off and have it write all the automation code for me, do the execution, I wouldn't trust it, actually. Like, I genuinely believe the right approach is to your point at the beginning, Daniel, is to have these building blocks. And I actually really like this whole kind of co-pilot methodology that a lot of organizations are going through, because that allows people to start to come in, build up that trust, see it working. And then I presume the next step for a lot of these organizations will be to actually go through and start chaining them up into more advanced things, right? But I think we're a very long way off that, to be honest.
I think that, I don't know if it's a solution, but I see it's the same problem with, as you mentioned, the trust issue here. When we talk about autonomous vehicles that I've been working with, I mean, we have the problem with collecting huge amount of data. We need to drive millions of miles with the vehicles to prove it. If we have a traditional test strategy, sort of say, what I've tried to do is to focus more like in the aviation industry or so on, that when you use more with not real data but simulation and simulated data and so on, and then you use a small portion at the end in the actual system, not to test the vehicle itself, but to validate all the testing that you've done before.
Yeah.
So and I see similar here with the trust issue, as you say, with AI, that you have an autonomous bot or whatever that do the testing, and you can test to a different dimension that you've done before, but then at the end you need to do something that don't test the actual application, but that validates all the testing that you've done, that validates that all these, I don't know, thousands of hours that the bot has done is correct. So I think that is a mindset shift that needs to be done. And I've struggled to get it into the automotive industry, and I guess there will be a struggle to get it into the mindset of testers here as well, to get them to, you're not testing the actual application, you're testing all the other testing that has been done. That is what you're trying to prove, that is correct. And if that is correct, then we're...
Interesting stuff. Right, we're going to stop talking about AI. We're going to move on.
No.
I'm sure
Why?
I'm sure we will come back.
So we've already kind of talked about embedded cars. Sorry, not embedded cars. Embedded systems within cars. We kind of talked about the uniqueness of Gothenburg, and that kind of Volvo is a large player when it comes to Gothenburg, and inevitably it brings in the dynamic of embedded testing, or embedded systems testing. Again, through one of the conversations before we came into this podcast was the fact that actually a lot of the kind of conversation, the narrative, all the information, even the conferences that exist in testing today are about application testing, right? And there isn't a lot about embedded systems. Why do you think that's the case? Because there's a hell of a lot of embedded testing that goes on, right?
Yeah, and I mean it gets more and more. I think it's really increasing. I mean, you have an embedded solution in your fridge, or I mean, in your home, and everywhere you have that. So,
is it the case that kind of they are two very different domains, or is it actually there should be a far more crossover than there is?
I mean, from my perspective, I don't care. I mean, I see it as software, and I don't. In my mind, at least, it doesn't matter if it runs on a chip or if it's a web application or if it's on a mobile and so on. But as you say, that is not how it looks on the arena, or not only on conferences. I think it's the same if you look at the number of thought leaders within testing. I mean, the majority, or more or less everyone, is coming from or talking about web applications or mobile and so on. It's a very little portion there that talks about embedded software and the challenges that comes with it. But as you mentioned, it's strange also because a lot of the let's say safety critical solutions are within autonomous vehicles mentioned before, but also other automotive systems. I mean, you have the brakes, steering, and so on. Aviation, trains, a lot of industry applications that are really safety critical. So quality is, I mean, it's built in.
Absolutely,
it's a I mean, that's a small portion. On top of that, we have the safety and security and those aspects.
But I think, having worked with some embedded systems companies, you mentioned the kind of the regulation, the need to evidence things, the structure that it brings to the way systems are developed, designed, tested. There's a hell of a lot that the more application style world could learn from that rigor, right? Lots of people will see that as needless bureaucracy, but actually, these things tend to go a hell of a lot faster, with a hell of a lot more structure, with a hell of a lot more evidence, with a hell of a lot, ironically, a hell of a lot more automation. There's a hell of a lot of learning that could be done if you cross-pollinated them, but it doesn't seem to happen, right? James, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd never really thought about it before, actually. But yeah, you're spot on. I mean, everything is all about web automation, mobile automation, and maybe some API automation. Like if you go on LinkedIn, you go to any conference, most of the talks are about that, right? It's crazy. I mean, I've worked with a few chip manufacturers before, and I think a lot of the time that's almost used as a competitive edge to a certain extent. I don't know about your domain, Daniel, in the self-driving car space. But I mean, if you're a large chip manufacturer, quality is kind of everything, right? And, usually they're not very public about that to a certain extent. And I wonder if that's partly the reason. But also it's not very transferable as well, I guess. Like if you're doing web automation, anyone can go to a website and learn and start to do automation. If you're doing a very specific embedded system type of testing, perhaps there's less appetite for a conference because it's less transferable from a direct kind of go and pick it up yourself and give it a go point of view. It's more of this is a much bigger story about the journey I've been on, I guess, right? And maybe that's the reason, but I don't really know either, actually.
But I mean, most of our clients, or not most, but several of them at least, uses Robot Framework, for instance,
Okay,
as their test automation framework, and of course that, I mean, you can talk about how you use that as a tool and those challenges around it. You don't need to go into let's say your company critical information. Challenges on how you test and so on. That could still be addressed and discussed in those forums, and also coming into as Rick mentioned with the proving. It's not only about finding bugs. I mean, that is kind of half of the job, saying what's not working. The other is you actually need to prove what is working.
Yeah.
And have evidence for that.
Yeah.
But if you go to conferences, if it's not about test automation, it's about bug hunt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that needs also to be balanced with, no, that is important testing, but it's not everything. At least not in these domains.
Because I think, back to the whole, in our world, visualization, right? And so, for an embedded system, visualizing how those components fit together from a design perspective, right? And I can't help but bring parallels to kind of my history in regulated financial services, the recent outage that we won't speak about, but I think will struggle to demonstrate or visualize resiliency of their IT stacks. Right, and how they satisfy, key customer processes, key customer outcomes, and I can't help but think that evidencing, that visual flow, that need for evidencing and structure around the way that those things are done, there are lots of things that the more traditional application world could learn from that rigor. I guess I'm in a minority on that. I don't know.
No. I mean, I agree. I mean, that's why I go to conferences. I go there to cross-pollinate, as you say. I want to get influences from, if it's a different domain or if it's from a different culture or just from, someone having different ideas and just sitting there discussing and talking about it. I think that makes me grow.
Yeah, because I wonder, right? It's like, almost, I'm thinking around in my head, right? If you went to a traditional conference and did a talk about embedded systems, automated cars, everyone would go along, right? It's a very interesting subject. How many people would leave there saying, actually, I could transfer a lot of what he was talking about into my everyday work? Because I would say a lot of it is transferable, right? All right, maybe not the car part, but actually the ways of working, that's very transferable.
Yeah, that's my view at least, and that's why I try to go to conferences to talk about those things. Because of course it's up to me then to keep it on a level that makes it transferable. But as long as you don't go too deep, but if you do that, it gets boring anyway. So
when you're talking about automated cars, surely.
No. I mean, if you go down to kind of the code level or whatever. I mean, if you keep it on the application level, of course you can transfer. Okay, this is a similar challenge that I have. Of course, it's a different domain, it's a different application, but the challenge might be the same, and you can bring that back home and talk to your team. And my view anyway with the conference talks is that, I mean, it's not expected to be that you should not take the complete solution back home and try and copy it.
That's true.
You should take bits or pieces from everywhere and put it into your context and see, okay, here I get inspiration or here I get small solutions that I can build into the way we work or how we work or I mean, whatever within the team or organization that you work.
Awesome. It's like a nice segue into the next subject, and we're going to talk about a bit about test scouts.
Oh,
So
nice.
obviously you talked there about continuous learning, right? And I think we were lucky enough to go to Gothenburg a couple of months ago now, and we did a model-based session at one of the conferences you run. What I came away, I was really impressed by not just the conference, but actually the attendees of the conference, right? A lot of them kind of are test scouts, testers, I'll call them that, and their enthusiasm to learn, but also how in front of the game, if I put it that way, and I'll explain that a little bit, they were in terms of the subjects we were covering. When we normally do workshops, we'll go through a bit of content and almost we'll need to explain what we were talking about when we do the practical sessions. The audience seemed to be a step ahead of us when we were talking about slides that we hadn't actually provided yet. And so it's quite impressive in terms of we will frame a lot of these things around problems you are seeing and therefore solutions you are looking into. A lot of your people are continuously learning, continuously looking at problems and how to solve them. Part of Test Scouts, obviously, as part of your bio, was looking at how do you build an organization that is continuously learning. Do you want to kind of give us a bit of information? This is going to be a very long question. The conference, and also more around how do you build the culture of continuous learning?
Yeah, the background for starting Test Scouts from the beginning was we wanted to do something different. We didn't want to do a traditional consultant company. Of course, we wanted to have the niche, focus on testing, because there's three of us that has started the company, and we have kind of similar background and similar mindset. So we wanted the focus on testing, but also to from the start, we wanted to have people that wanted to become something within testing, then preferably, and we want, because that is how we are as people. We want to learn. I want to learn something new every day, and the same with my colleagues Bengt and Klaus. So already from the beginning, we said, okay, we need to have some kind of mentorship. And I usually joke about it. It's not about the person that shows you where the printer is and how you do your time reporting. It's an actual, you work together towards the learning goals that you want to have. What do you want to become in 5 years? I want to be an expert. I want to be the best in Gothenburg in test automation. Okay, how do we get there then? Then we need to break it down. You need to have these kind of assignment, you need to go to these conferences, do these courses, and you get this kind of mentor program that then follows, which also means that you need to do things. I mean, it's similar to school. You need to do your homework. You do need to do your practice and so on. And maybe once a month you meet and kind of see how it goes. So that was one piece of the puzzle. And the other is that we try to gather the whole company once every month to learn something new. It can be a new tool, can be a new method, but it can also be soft skills, how to be a good consultant, stress handling, leadership, whatever. And it can be that someone within the company has heard something in the conference and they bring it home and we talk about it, we try it out. We try, preferably it's something hands-on, because that improves the learning, of course. And that we keep doing, and sometimes we bring in people from outside, and sometimes we do it internally and so on. But every month the whole company, we sit together and learn something new.
Awesome.
And then we have the conferences, as you mentioned, and we started to having internal conferences full day, and then a year ago we thought, let's do it the same way, but let's invite everyone within the local testing community, and that we did, and that has then extended to be a, I don't know, international testing conference
now.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
But internally for us, that is our internal conference that we run every year. It's just that we open it up for everyone to come and join. It's free for everyone.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, more generically in testing, we always talk about there's a slight lack of innovation when it comes to testing, right? Or we see a lot of teams that are still doing the same thing that they were doing many, many years ago, right? They're stuck in a rut, stagnation, whatever you want to call it, right? And I think it's not very fulfilling as a role, is it? And it seems like you've got a great model in terms of not just kind of continually pushing the needle in terms of what good testing looks like, but in terms of motivating people, making them aware of what new technologies to look for. It sounds from our conversation around AI, kind of things that can work, things that might not work, how to kind of nudge towards what the future looks like in a safe way, right? What are your thoughts, James?
No, I'm just listening to Daniel, and I just, it's resonating a lot with me. I mean, we called our company Curiosity Software, right? Because we want to work with curious companies, we want to work with curious people, but also the people we bring into the company are also very curiously minded as well. They're curious in the fact that they're lifelong learners. They want to keep learning. They want to innovate. They want to push the boundary of what's possible. And I see this within our company as well, right? And that's really hard to cultivate, right? Like it's I think it's really impressive what you've done. You've obviously taken it 10 levels higher with the whole conference you're doing, Daniel, and everything. And I heard the same from George when he came back. He was so excited about what you guys were doing, just echoing Rich, like the whole environment. I just love it. I think it's fantastic.
Happy to hear. Yeah. I mean, you always have your own view that everything is nice, but having someone from outside saying that we're on the right path or getting something out of the activities that we're doing, that's I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, I like the evolution as well, how it started from being, an internal, monthly meeting thing to this much bigger concept, right? That's amazing. That's such a good story. I really enjoy that.
And I think the interesting part is that everybody seems to buy into those values, right? I think in a lot of places you get a message up on high and it kind of starts to dilute, but your people say the same kind of things that you do, right?
I mean, I think the three of us running the company, we don't see ourselves as managers or I don't know. Business. We're testers, and that is our drive, and that's where we get our energy from. So we want. I know that there are a lot of business leaders or that say that I wanted to create a company where I wanted to work myself, but in this case, that has been our ambition. We try to create an environment and a culture that is what we stand for and what we like and where we want to go. And we live it ourselves. I think that is kind of the important thing, and what I hope that our testers see. But also, I think coming a little bit back to what you said, Rick, about people or organization might stagnate or get stuck in the same ways if you don't learn, and we have the same when we hire people or kind of in the interview sessions and so on. Of course, sometimes people are having a really nice resume, work 20 years and so on, but they haven't learned anything during those 20 years compared to someone coming straight out of school and full of energy, wanting to learn new things. And for us, then it's an easy choice.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the person coming from school, and then those 20 years doesn't mean anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, my colleague Bengt usually jokes about he was really good at Windows 95, and today, I can't joke about it anymore because no one knows what Windows 95 is. But I mean, having that in his CV or resume, it doesn't help. I mean, no one would like his help with Windows 95 today, but it's
Windows 95 today might have been useful.
No, that's an exception. I think it's isn't it Southwest Airlines who are running Windows 3.1 or 95 or something? That's why they didn't get brought down in the CrowdStrike thing. I think.
Yeah, I think there's some governments in Sweden as well where it can be useful, but yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
I think that people are sitting there and having that knowledge already.
Definitely.
So, what if for a kind of a leader of a test capability? What advice would you give to them if they've got a team that's perhaps stagnating?
I mean, as I mentioned, you need to live it yourself. You need to kind of, if you are interested in learning yourself, then
Yeah.
kind of the people in your team will also.
Yeah, you need to show those behaviors, don't you?
Yeah, you need to show those, and I mean that's not specific for testing, or I mean it goes for everything. I think so. I mean, but also doing small challenges or small. I mean, it's the same here. Don't do the big step. To take smaller steps. Do a challenge. Learn something. I know we had in one organization. I brought it up like a weekly challenge on the morning stand up. So Monday morning, do something within test automation, and Friday morning say what you learned or say what you did during the week. So it's a weekly learning challenge.
It's that 1% improvement thing, isn't it? If you can continually improve yourself 1%, then eventually.
Yeah. I mean something like that, and I mean for some that are really into it, they will do a lot during the week, but for others they will take smaller step, but it's still a step. And I think that's important, and also important that you kind of embrace that, or that you put your hand on the back and say good work. Even if, I mean, it doesn't matter for that person, it might be a big step. Still,
awesome. If you've got any kind of the test scouts, is there any content that people wanting to understand a little bit more around your working practices and those kind of things they can go and look for, other than trying to join test scouts, of course?
No, but I think you have something there. Maybe that should be a new conference
there
talk
you go.
for me. Yeah. Thank you, Rick.
Great outcome.
No, but I mean, I think maybe it's something that we should also talk about externally, not only kind of the testing specific parts, but how we build the culture, as you mentioned, about
absolutely
continuous learning.
You've got something there, definitely. Awesome. All right, I'm conscious of time. Daniel, thank you very much for a really interesting, engaging conversation. Lots of good stuff. Some not so good about AI. Some good stuff about AI. Some really, really good insight into the leadership and culture. Let's put it that way, right?
Thank you very much for having me here.
No worries.
Thank
Thanks,
you so
James,
much,
for
Daniel.
being on the pod. And big thank you to Daniel. Go and look for Test Scout's website. I'm sure you can engage you on LinkedIn. Right. Thanks very much, everybody, for watching. That was the Why Don't You Test That podcast. Join us for the next series. Catch you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Why Didn't You Test That podcast. To continue the conversation, head over to curiositiesoftware.ie. Subscribe for more episodes.